the mute button, that if it is green means you're live, and if it's orange means you're unlive. I'm sure that most of you, or means that you're muted. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this by now, but it's always a good idea to just go through things. If you have any questions, instead of unmuting yourself, please type them into the chat. And I will answer them as I go, or if there are a lot of questions, I might just wait until the end, or wait until the end of a section. So the last bit of housekeeping is that I will be sharing some videos. Just go back one. I'll be sharing some videos with you. There is a little bit of a lag time as I switch from sharing my screen to sharing the video. Mostly the lag time is on the other end. So if you get a screen that says webinar in progress, ... after a video finishes, it's just going to take a little bit of time to switch back into the screen sharing mode. As far as sound goes, you will be the one controlling the sound. So if you can't hear me right now, check that your computer or phone is unmuted. And as far as videos go, again, you control the sound on your end as well, so you can turn it up or down as needed. Okay, so let's dive in. First, who is Local Motion? We are Vermont's statewide advocate for active transportation, vibrant communities, and safe streets. What that means is we are trying to bring walking, biking, rolling, horseback riding, any other form of active transportation that you can think of more accessible to communities and safer for communities. So the gist of our mission, to make biking and walking a way of life across Vermont. We run several different programs, one of which is offering workshops to local universities, local businesses, and just local community members like this one. We also run a Bike Smart program, which goes statewide, bringing a fleet of bicycles to elementary and middle schoolers to teach them bike safety and rules of the road. We run a bike ferry that's at the end of the Colchester Causeway. We run a trailside center where you can rent bikes down on the waterfront. And we do advocacy work in Burlington and around the state to help communities get the infrastructure that they need in place to make biking and walking and rolling a safer mode of transportation. All right, so the first test, we'll be switching to a video, and then bear with me on the way back. All right, so this is the lag time I was referring to. But in general, the gist of that video is to get across the point. Why bike? Biking makes us happy. Biking keeps us healthy. Biking offers a way to engage with our community as we move around and see different things that we wouldn't normally see and experience different sensations that we wouldn't normally experience if we were driving. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Whenever I see an adult on a bicycle, I have hope for the human race," by H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells was one of the founding fathers of science fiction. He was hugely famous for his writings in the 40s through the 60s, and he was a futurist. So his vision of the future included everyone riding a bike, and that's something that I like to hold on to and have hope for in my vision of the future as well. So driving can leave you feeling drained and frustrated. Bicycling can help keep you healthier, both physically and mentally. So lots of reasons to do it. It can also be socially distant. So in this day and age, it's more difficult to find things that you can do with your friends, with your community members. Biking is something that you can keep your distance while doing. It's better for the environment. You're producing fewer greenhouse gases. You're taking up less room on the road. So oftentimes, especially in Burlington, it is actually faster to bike somewhere than it is to drive there. And in general, more people on bikes, less congestion equals less pollution, so better for the environment and better for everyone. It can also save you money depending on obviously how far your commute is and what kind of conditions you go through to commute there. If you are able to use a bike for transportation, it will lower your yearly transportation costs. So if biking is great, biking can make the world better. How did we get here? How did we get from many of the clips you saw in that first video of people biking as a standard mode of transportation to less than 1% of bicycle commuters nationally in this country? And the big question is, what happened to our streets to make them so car-centric and to move away from making biking more accessible and safe for everyone? So our next quick transition to a fun video will help answer that question. Okay, so that answers a lot of the questions about, or maybe it poses more questions than it answers, but it gives you the idea that when the automobile industry really became more prominent, there was a propaganda campaign, and it turned the streets away from being constructed and construed as, the rights of everyone to be on the street, bikers, pedestrians, whomever, any other vulnerable user, and the streets became owned by cars. And since then, streets have been designed around the idea that they need to be car-centric, traffic-centric, and this is how our modern infrastructure has been set up. So how do we now look at this and say, well, I'm recognizing that maybe biking is a way for transportation, and maybe biking needs to be included in how we design our infrastructure. So the best way to do that is the more you ride, the closer we get to safe, equitable, and sustainable streets. So having more bikers, pedestrians, vulnerable users using our streets will create that push to have a more equitable and sustainable infrastructure system. So as a bicyclist, you do have a right to the road, but you have responsibilities as well while biking. And so that's what we'll dive into next. So we'll go into some of the laws and rights and responsibilities of bikers. It can be a little bit dry, but it is very important content to have. So we'll just be looking at kind of the higher level things, and please feel free to ask questions as they come up. Type them into the chat and I will try to answer them as I'm in this section to make sure that things stay connected. So according to Vermont state law, people riding bikes have the same rights and responsibilities as drivers with certain exceptions. So it is your right to take the lane. Taking the lane means using as much of the lane as you need to make sure that you are safe. So Vermont law says that you should ride as close to the right as is safe and as is practicable is the language that's actually written into the law. So when you feel that the middle of the lane is the safest place for you to be, you can absolutely move over there. And we'll talk about some examples of when that might, when that situation might present itself. But in general, you should be as far to the right as you feel comfortable riding. And if you have a bike lane, use the bike lane if it's an option. So this is a list of examples that are included in the state law for when it is your right to take the lane. I'm not going to run through all of them. You kind of get the idea by looking through it. Some of my favorites, though, that I wouldn't have thought of until I read them in the law are unfavorable atmospheric conditions. This can mean if there is a fog, a low-lying fog along the side of the road, which prevents you from seeing a possible pothole that comes up or the shoulder dropping off, you are absolutely allowed to take the lane. Road geometry, same thing. If the shoulder just crumbles to the side of the road and there is no longer a shoulder, you have the right to take the lane. And seeing as we are in Vermont, where the winters are rough on our roads, that happens more often than you might expect. Anything that is considered a safety hazard, if there are animals in the road, if there are pedestrians, if you're overtaking another vulnerable user, you absolutely have the right to take the lane. But it's essential to do so properly. And we'll talk a little bit about how to stay safe while you're taking the lane in the next section. So this is a video that was made in Ohio. There's a lot of yellow text. That's not the important part. What we're watching here is a really good example of how a biker uses his lane positioning to communicate with the drivers. And there's no sound in this video, so you'll just be listening to me talk you through what's happening here. So check out the shoulder that he was coming from. You can still see it here. That is unsafe geometric conditions for you to be riding all the way to the right of the lane. So this biker is staying in the lane until they see a suitable shoulder opening up and they feel safe to move over and ride on the shoulder instead. And it's important to note that you do not need to stay as close to the white line as possible when you are taking the lane. You may move into the middle of the lane. Oftentimes it's more dangerous to be riding right on that white line, because then you don't have as much wiggle room to react to something that could happen unexpectedly in front of you. So this biker saw ahead of them, so they planned ahead before it happened that their shoulder was about to run out. So they waited until it was clear, moved over, took the lane, and are now communicating to the cars saying, this is my lane as well. I do not have a safe shoulder to ride on. And they're communicating that you do not have enough room as a driver to pass me right now to give me my safe 4 feet. So I'm taking the middle of the lane to say, nope, you need to wait until there's no oncoming traffic and you have enough space to navigate around me safely. All right, so that gives you some good examples of what it looks like to use your lane position to communicate with drivers around you. So in addition to having the right to take the lane when it is the safest choice, there are other laws that are pretty important for you to be familiar with as a biker. No riding at night without lights. That's a big part of why we are offering free lights to everyone who takes this course, because we want to promote that culture of bike safety, and having lights on your bike is one of the absolute most important ways, especially at night, to keep yourself safe and to keep other people around you safe. So you ride in the direction of traffic. Ride with, walk against. It's an old adage that most people learned growing up, but always good for a reminder. Your bike must have working brakes. Again, safety. Don't grab onto other vehicles, so no drifting. Don't ride more than 2 abreast. In Vermont, it is legal to ride 2 bikers right next to each other, as long as you are both staying as far to the right as is practicable. Oftentimes, it is just a polite thing to do when working with traffic to ride single file if it's on a more narrow road, to give drivers that opportunity to safely pass you without feeling like they need to come that close to you, and that they can still give you the 4 feet. Keep at least one hand on handlebars while carrying something. And e-bikes that are becoming more popular these days are regulated as bikes. So this is it's newer law because e-bikes are a newer phenomenon, but it's good to know that if you have an e-bike, you are regulated the same as a traditional analog bike. So some of the top things that we get questions about: is it legal to ride between the lanes of stopped traffic? No, very much so not. If there isn't a clear bike lane and it's just that really narrow shoulder that you're finding yourself riding on the white line, you should take the full lane and get in line with traffic. Same thing if there's a right turn lane happening and you're going straight, move left and take that lane instead of being in the right lane, because again, you're using your body position and your bike position to communicate with the other drivers. So if your bike is in the right turn only lane, they're going to think you're turning right and won't be expecting you to go straight, which can create a dangerous situation for you and the people around you. Is it legal to ride on the sidewalk? In Burlington specifically, yes, you can. There is an inner fire district, which I have an image of next, where it is not legal to ride on the sidewalk. But it's good to know and to keep in mind that the sidewalk tends to be more dangerous for bikers than riding in the street. Sidewalk infrastructure, and therefore the laws and spacing around a sidewalk, was built for pedestrians moving at a pedestrian pace, which is about average 2 miles per hour. So there might be a bush that is blocking somebody's view as they back out of their driveway, that if a pedestrian were walking, they would be going slow enough for both the driver and the pedestrian to react and keep everyone safe. If you are biking on the sidewalk, a sidewalk that has been constructed for pedestrian speeds, you are unlikely to have that reaction time to coordinate with the vehicle that is pulling out of their driveway to make sure that you don't get hit or that you don't hit them. So if you are going to be riding on the sidewalk and that's just where you feel more safe, Go slow, be careful, be courteous, and yield. You do not have the number one right of way on the sidewalk as a biker. You are the lower priority than pedestrians. So here's the inner fire district from Burlington. It runs from King Street up until the top of Elmwood, or halfway up Elmwood to the Grant of the Cross Street, and includes Church Street in it as well. And Church Street is a non-biking walk your bike area as well, not just from being in the inner fire district, but because it is a pedestrian road. Yes, and we got a question saying, or comment saying, I believe state law prohibits e-bikes to bike on sidewalks. And I absolutely agree, Abby. Thank you for bringing that up. Although e-bikes are regulated as bikes, they do have some specific regulations like this one. And if you are someone who is interested in an e-bike or incorporating e-bikes into your life, that's something to be aware of. Because they are so new, the law will be constantly evolving and changing around them. So it's something to just keep an eye out and keep your ear to the ground to learn what is happening each year as e-bike infrastructure evolves. All right, so is it legal to ride across a crosswalk with a walk sign? Crosswalks are for pedestrians, but you can become a pedestrian when you are on a bike. So if you are on a sidewalk and you are looking to cross a crosswalk, hop off your bike, walk your bike across, and then you can pull back out into the road and hop back on your bike. This is really useful for if you're taking a left at a busy intersection or you're just approaching an intersection that you are uncomfortable biking through. You can, when it is safe, signal that you're pulling over, hop off your bike, become a pedestrian, cross at the with the walk sign, and then when it's safe, hop back on and continue on the road. Is it legal to roll through a stop sign? Currently in Vermont, bicycles are required to stop, full stop at all stop signs, just like traffic. In some states, it's legal to treat them as yield signs, but for now, we do need to follow the Vermont law, which says full stop at a stop sign. Okay, so that's the legal part of understanding what your responsibilities are as a biker. And then the next best way to keep yourself safe is to follow the 3 tenets of biking: be visible, be predictable, and be aware. I got a comment on here that says many bike paths around the area have crosswalks along their routes. Yes. So if you're talking about a crosswalk that is built in with a predetermined biking path, then that's a crosswalk that is used for the bike path, so you can bike across that. If it is a crosswalk that is still on a traffic road, like a car road, then that's something that you should ideally get off and walk across. But it is a little bit subjective depending on what kind of bike path you're working on or you're riding on. Okay, so be visible, be predictable, and be aware. 3 top things that you can do to keep yourself safe. And before we dive into that, I do want a quick note on helmets. So helmets are good. Wearing one definitely keeps you safer, but helmets were not designed for the impact of car crashes. They were designed to protect you as you are going through an accident or a crash on your bike that is a single person crash, or maybe even a biker on biker crash. So the more important thing to do to keep yourself safe is to follow the rules of the road. So be visible. Pretty self-explanatory, but the best things to do are to wear bright and reflective clothing, especially if you are riding your bike at night, and to run lights on your bike. So light laws in Vermont say that you need a minimum of a bright white light on the front and a red rear reflector. So the law does not say that you need a rear red flashing light, just the reflector. But that extra component of safety tells me that you need a rear red flashing light as well. And just from my own lived experience, I think you are so much safer as a biker if you have a red flashing light in the back. White in the front, red in the back, because that mimics traffic. And as a biker, you are traffic, so you want to keep them kind of standard and consistent, because your lights are communicating to drivers which direction you're traveling, how fast you're going. And that's why the flashing red in the back is really helpful as well, because it gives them a reference point of kind of how fast you are going. And running lights on your bike during the daytime can be a good safety feature as well. If it's a really bright day out and you bike through a shadow and you're wearing all black or just dark clothing, you can become almost invisible to a driver because of the contrast from the brightness to the darkness of the shadow. So having that front light or the red rear light or just something reflective on your person can help keep you a little bit safer, even on a bright day. So here's a great example. It's dusk, and you want people to be saying, that's a bike, not, huh, is that a bike? Make yourself visible, make yourself safe. Second is be predictable. So being predictable means making sure that people understand where you are going and when you are going there. And the best way to do that is to signal. I also want to add, I see a ton of people just around town who play the game that I call, am I a biker or am I a pedestrian? And this is a very different game than making that active transition from biker to get off my bike to walk across a crosswalk to get back on my bike and become a biker again. This is the game where somebody will be biking down a road, let's say North Street, and they hit a red light behind two cars, but they don't want to wait at that red light. So they hop onto the sidewalk, plow across, and then duck back out and dive onto the road. This is incredibly dangerous, which seems like it would be an obvious thing, but the number of people that I see biking around town who play this game, it really worries me, because if you are not predictable, drivers don't know when to expect you to be coming back out onto the road. If a driver is going to make a right turn and you're hopping on the sidewalk, they're not looking for you on the sidewalk. They see that you're on the road, so they're expecting you to be far enough back that they won't have any interference when they're making the right turn. And anything that kind of disrupts that predictability makes you more dangerous and makes things more dangerous for you. So in addition to not playing the am I biker or am I pedestrian game, always signal your turns. So on the right, you can see the stop and slow down signals. These are much less commonly used. They are not ones that most people have in their lexicon or their signaling lexicon. They're traditionally used when you are biking with other bikers or with a pack of bikers or just one other bikers. The left turn and the right turn are the most important ones though. Left turn is pretty obvious. You just extend your left arm straight out and it indicates I am turning left. Your right turn, you have different options. You can either extend your right arm all the way out and point in the direction you're going, or you can use your left arm at a 90-degree angle, hand towards the sky. Both are acceptable signals. Some people are more comfortable removing one hand from the handlebars as they're biking, and so that's why they choose one or the other. Some people are more comfortable using the left-hand signal because it is generally the side that traffic is on. So they're thinking, okay, I'm communicating with traffic, so I want to use my traffic-facing hand to make sure that anyone who is coming up behind me or passing me sees what I am doing. Just quickly, I saw another question. Sorry, I didn't see this before, but somebody asked, is it legal to bike the wrong way on a one-way bike lane, like on North Union Street? No, it is definitely not. If it is a one direction, or depends on which part of North Union Street. Nope, that's South Winooski that I'm thinking about. If it is a one directional bike lane, bike lanes have arrows in them. They indicate which way you should be going. That is the only way that you should be going on that bike lane. There's a road, I want to say it's South Winooski, that below the Maple Street and King Street area that it's a one-way road for cars, but it has a separate two-directional bike lanes for bikes. That is perfectly legal to ride on. But if it is just a one-way bike lane, you are just creating more danger for people who are coming up, both drivers and bikers going the correct way. Okay, so predictability. So be either a pedestrian or a biker. Don't bike between the two of them. And then finally, be aware. So being aware is kind of as simple as it sounds, that be aware of your surroundings, keep your ears open. So don't bike with two headphones in. Make sure that you can hear cars approaching you or people yelling at you or bikers approaching you. And scan ahead of you. So you're going to be constantly looking for potholes, gravel, car doors. That's a really powerful example of how biking can go very wrong. So many of our bike lanes are built on the driver's side of parking lanes, and our culture is not accustomed to checking before they open the car door after they've parked. So as a biker, it's good to just be a little bit extra aware of those kinds of things. So the right hook is another good example of what you should be looking for and have an anticipation of while you're biking with traffic. The right hook is when a biker or a car is driving along you, pulls ahead of you as a biker, and takes a right and cuts you off because they're not paying attention to the bike lane, or they're just not paying attention in general. And this is something that, if it is too close of a call, could result in some serious injury. So it's just something to keep in mind as you see a car put on their blinker, and make sure that they are aware of you. And then the left cross, and we'll actually watch a video to explain this one. The biker in it will run through the scenario once, talking you through what's happening, and then run through it again. And you can see all the moving components of biking through this intersection and what the biker is aware of and thinking of as they do so. Okay, so that gives you a good example of what the left cross means. So the big takeaway between right hook, left cross awareness is that anytime you are approaching an intersection where traffic could be moving in a different direction that is not just parallel with the direction that you are going, check in, make eye contact with the drivers. Eye contact is a great way to make sure that everyone sees you, and you know that everyone sees you, and just keep an eye out, scan ahead, see what's happening. At stop signs, something that I have found, just again, anecdotally, personally, is that drivers will see their responsibility as giving bikers the right of way. And this can be nice because it allows you to carry on your momentum a little bit, but it also instills the culture of, oh, let's stop everything that we do for bikers, and can actually make things a little bit more dangerous. So I find that when I am coming to a stop sign, or a two-way stop sign, three-way stop sign, four-way stop sign, whatever it is, I will actually put my feet down on the ground and I will stare at the driver until they go. I want them to know that I am going to stop at the stop sign. I am not going to just blow through this stop sign, especially if I'm coming down a hill and that's what they anticipate and expect happening. And to demonstrate that as a biker, I am respecting the rules of traffic. Okay, our final section for this is you've got your bike, you're happy biking, you know the laws, you know how to stay safe. Now, how do you not get your bike stolen? Bike thefts are increasing almost exponentially year after year, and 2020 is no different. A bike is an investment. A bike is a mode of transportation. It is entertainment. It is exercise. It is just a reliable steed that gets you around town. So to have it stolen can be absolutely devastating. So a couple of simple, safe ways to help deter thieves from targeting your bike. So this is a fun video that's a little bit old, but the principle still stands. It was filmed in New York City, and it demonstrates that you cannot completely prevent bike theft. If a bike thief wants your bike, has the right opportunity and the right tools, they will be able to get it. But there are so many things that you can do to help prevent that and to deter them from targeting your bike. And so this is just a good intro to what we'll be talking about. Okay, so clearly Vermont is a little bit different than New York City. The bystander effect, I would like to think, is a little bit less in a small state versus a major metropolitan area. But the principle stands that thieves can get your bike if they really want it. So we'll go over some things that you can do that are best practices for how to lock your bike, different types of locks that you can use, and just ways to deter anyone looking to steal your bike. Because generally thieves are looking for a quick and easy target. So if you make your bike not quick and not easy target, then they are less likely to target your bike. So the three main types of locks are the U-lock with a cable, and a chain lock. There are also just cable locks that you can use. I do not recommend them in general because they are very easy to cut or saw through, whereas all three of these take a little bit more time and effort. Again, just making it less of an easy target. So the do's and don'ts. Primarily, you want to secure the frame and the rear wheel to something that is immobile and that you cannot lift the bike off of and the lock off of. Your secondary security measure is securing your front wheel, either to the rest of the bike or to the same locking infrastructure as well. So things to note when you're choosing somewhere to lock your bike. Make sure that you can't just lift the lock or the bike right over it. So you want a tall, grounded object, preferably with something at the top of it to make it not fit, the lock not fit over the top. This is a pretty blatant example of how to fail to lock your bike. All you have to do is pick up the sign and you can walk away with it. Here's a good example. They're blocked to a tall street, I would assume a street sign. Clearly it's tall enough that you would not easily be able to lift the bike over it. They have a U-lock locking the frame and the rear wheel, both to each other and to the signpost as well. So that's pretty much the gist of how to safely lock your bike. Make sure that it is locked to a secure object. Make sure that it is locked at least the frame and the rear wheel if you can, and then the front wheel in addition if you have a second lock, or if you have a long enough chain lock, or a U-lock with a cable. And make sure that when you go to lock it, especially if you have a combination lock, you turn the combination so that it is not just left in the unlocked position. Last slide, additional tips and tricks for keeping your bike safe. Number one, just always lock it. Lock it in a high traffic area, not hidden. So places like Church Street are actually safer to keep your bike locked on than if you were to go to one of the side streets and lock it in one of those dark alleyways between close together buildings. Lock your bike to a tall or closed loop object. So any bike rack will be closed loop and ideally secured and affixed to the ground so that someone cannot just lift the whole rack and take your bike with it. Don't lock your bike to itself. Even though it seems like, how would somebody steal my bike if I have the tire locked to the frame but not locked to anything else? They can just pick up one end of the bike and wheel it away. You don't have to ride a bike away in order to steal it. And then don't lock your bike to other bikes. Absolutely. It would make it harder for someone to steal your bike like that, but again, not impossible because you can just move 2 bikes away. And I have a comment in here, thank you. It says, watch out for the bike thief trip where they lock crappy bike to your good bike. And then you come out, unlock your bike, and then they just have their lock on it. So yeah, if somebody is doing that to you, if you come out and your bike is locked, or somebody else has locked their bike to your bike or around your bike, leave your lock on. That is a pretty common way that people have started stealing bikes, is they'll take their lock off to hope that, hey, when this person comes, or I'll just take my lock off, go inside, have them do a call, like if you're at City Market or something, and you come back out and both bikes are gone. So yeah, thank you. That's a really good comment. All right, so this is a summation of how to keep your bike safe. and by locking it, how to not get it stolen, and how to keep yourself safe while you are riding. So happy riding, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email is here. It's Sandy, SANDY, @localmotion.org. And now on to the goods and the good part. So you will receive in about an hour after this presentation ends, an email, and in there will be a link to a Google form. You fill out that Google form, make sure you hit the submit button. It will bring you to an instruction page with the submit button. You have to hit submit, otherwise your form won't go through. And that will give you the instructions for how to pick up your free light set and your Ben & Jerry's coupon. And make sure you fill out with your UVM affiliate email address and your name that would be on the records. We'll be using this form to just double check that you actually attended this presentation. And then go out and enjoy the last, couple weeks of nice riding weather and test out some of these ideas that we went over today. All right, so I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. I really appreciate that you came to learn how to be a little bit safer of a biker and contribute to our community. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And otherwise, happy riding and enjoy your ice cream.